Welcome students. Today I will be deliberating upon very important phenomenon in the animal life, that is called as migration. As we all know that there are different animals that show the phenomenon called migration. Migration is an instinctive behavior found in case of animals. Right from invertebrates to vertebrates, animals have been known to show the phenomenon called migration. What is migration? Migration can be defined as the class of movement where an animal moves in search of shelter, feed, or to spawn, that is to breed in a particular location which is safe for it. There are different sets of definitions for the purpose of migration. One is based on the seasonal migration, when an animal tries to locate a favorable season for breeding, favorable season for feeding, and also the favorable season for resting. The second class of definition is based on the breeding. The breeding migration is based on the search of the favorable season where the eggs can be laid, where the hatching can be done, and where there is favorable environment for the feeding of the young ones, and also which is predator free. The third set of migration is based on the resting place. A favorable resting place is also required for an healthy lifestyle of an animal, and thus an animal shows the migration based on that. There are definitions which have been precisely given by certain workers like Thomson, Baker, Hardin Jones, etc. I will be quoting the definitions as has been said by these workers. Thomson in the year 1952 defined migration as a seasonal migration or movement that implies returning to the site where from the migration has started. Hardin Jones in the year 1968 defined migration as a class of movement that impels migrants to return to the region from where they have migrated. Thus he incorporated all the migrations in it, that is seasonal, breeding, and resting migration. Baker in the year 1972 defined migration as a class of movement which involves the change of place, that is spatial unit, to another. During the course of my lecture, I will be using different terms and I will like you to get introduced to these terms. The first term is that of orientation. How an animal is able to position itself according to the external cues. The external cues are the sun rays, the light from the celestial bodies like stars, constellations, magnetic field, etc. and the process on which the organism is able to decide the direction of its migration. An animal can either migrate at an angle to these cues or will migrate towards or away from that cue. The next word that I will be using is that of navigation. Navigation is a term which makes an animal that is migrating to know about the position of it during the course of its migration. Humans also use the instruments called compass and maps to know the position when they are navigating either in the air or in the ships in the seas. Compasses help the humans to know the position and the direction, while as maps help an human to know that what is the position of its journey. Likewise, navigation is used by the animals also, right from invertebrates to vertebrates, to know the position and the direction of movement based again on the external cues. Either they will be at an angle to the external cue or they will be moving towards or away from the external cues. The third term is the taxis. Taxis means the class of movement either towards or away from the external stimulus. The stimulus can be light and we call that as phototaxis. The stimulus can be the chemical, which we call as chemotaxis. The stimulus can be the currents of water or air, which we call as rheotaxis movements. Another words that I will be using will be that of homing. You must have heard the word that homing instinct. Every animal, whether it be humans, have an instinct to return to the home wherefrom they have started their journey. Homing instinct is an inbuilt instinct in the animals, which can be either based on the genes or in the minds of the animals that show the class of movement called migration. The other word is piloting. Piloting is the word that refers to know the direction during the course of the movement. The piloting involves the remembering of the landmarks like that of the Himalayas, the Alps, large rivers like the Ganges, the oceans, etc., which an animal remembers during the course of a journey, that is migration. True navigation is the term used for the animals which migrate for the first time, and as is the example with the anguilla, which is the eel, European eel. It has been seen that the young ones which have never seen the course of movements or the course of locations where they have to actually reach, but they reach there without the aid of the leaders or any other parent, which will help them to know the direction during the course of migration. Now, why is there a movement called migration during the lifespan of an animal? There are certain theories that have been given by different class of workers. One of that has got the historical reason. As we all know that Earth consisted of two things, one is the landmass and another is the water body, millions of years before, and entire landmass was in the form of a big landmass called Pangea. This Pangea showed movement that's called as continental drifting, which resulted in the formation of 7 large continents and which have got the hindrances of the water bodies called oceans and seas in between. And it has been said that this entire landmass used to have animals which are presently on that, and this is why that there is a basic inbuilt instinct for the animals that are living in the seas or different continents to return to these continents where actually their forefathers lived. And that is why it has been seen that in case of turtles, sea turtles, that to return to the land masses for laying eggs, and the young ones that come out of these eggs after hatching, they return back to the sea. Another reason which has been given by the different scientists is that the animals migrate in search of the food source. Birds have been seen to show the migration towards the south when there is large amount of food available in the south, and when they return to the north, the food has been seen to be abundant in the north only, and that is why they show the migration either towards the southern hemisphere or towards the northern hemisphere. Fishes also have been seen to show this class of movement, particularly when they show vertical movements, as is the case with the herring, where it has been seen that the zooplanktons on which it feeds, that the zooplanktons during the daytime are at different depths, that is they are deep born, and during when sun sets, these zooplanktons come to the surface, and accordingly the herrings have also been seen to come to the surface to feed them. And thus this class of movement is based on the food source, that is the animals will show or will tend to show the migration depending upon the food where it is available. It has also been seen that fishes, they swim upstream for laying eggs, because in the upstreams there are very less predators available for eating the eggs or the young ones, and this class of movement seen in fishes is for the spawning. Thus the two reasons that can be given for the migration is, number one is the historical reason that they have got the homing instinct, and second is either based on the feed or on the breed. The example that can be given is that of the white whale, or which is also called as grey whale. It has been seen that the grey whales during summer, they feed in the Arctic oceans, and when they have to breed in winter, they migrate towards Mexico. Thus, grey whales are known to show both types of migration, either based on the feed or based on the breeding. They breed in Mexico and they feed in the Arctic oceans. What are the benefits of migration? Number one is increased food supply. Birds in summer are known to migrate towards the northern areas, because in the northern areas during summers there is large amount of light available. Because of the large quantities of light available, there is large amount of photosynthesis that take place. Therefore, there are number of grains available to them, and also there are number of insects available to them for the feed, which parasitize on the photosynthetic plants. Fishes also have another benefit, that they also have got the benefit of protection of the eggs and fingerlings that hatch out of their eggs. Now, what triggers the process of migration? A well-known reason for the triggering of the mechanism of migration in them is the photo period. It has been seen that when there are short periods of day, in case of birds, there are long nights, and long nights mean that there will be large amount of rest available to the birds, and when there is large amount of rest, it in turn means that there will be deposition of fats underneath the skin. This deposition of fats in them causes restlessness, because these birds want to have very less weight so that they could refute gravity and they could fly. This addition of weight in them causes restlessness, and that is why this has been seen that they show the migration towards the areas which have larger days, that is, they have longer day periods. How do the animals orient themselves during the course of migration? Number one is the visual cues. The visual cues are the lands, continents, the mountains, the rivers, etc., which the bird can learn to remember during the course of its action, that is, during the course of migration. The second is the wave orientations. The wave orientations are, we have seen that the warm currents during winters, they come from the seas, and the cooler currents, they flow from the land towards the seas, and it has been seen that the animals have learned to follow the course of these currents, that is, either the cold currents or the warm currents, and accordingly the animals show migration either towards or away from the landmass or the sea mass. Magnetic orientation. We all know that Earth has got the two poles, that is North Pole and South Pole, and the Earth's magnet is accordingly having North Pole and South Pole, and it has been seen that the animals, they orient their motions depending upon the magnetic field they are moving in. Either they will be moving at a right angle or an angle to that magnetic field. It has been seen that magnetic compass is being used by different animals like birds, fruit flies, that is Drosophila, which is an insect, sea turtles, which are the reptiles, bacteria, and salmon. Thus, among vertebrates, right from the fishes to the mammals, all class of animals show their migration depending upon the different external cues. What is the mechanism used for orientation? Number one is the sun compass, celestial bodies, magnetic compass, topographical features, olfactory senses, and hydrodynamic cues. Now friends, in the course of my lecture, I have talked about migration, the definition of migration, and what are the reasons behind the migration. The common reason is that of the feed, the breeding, and the resting. We have also come to know during the course of my lecture what are the external cues that they use and what is the triggering mechanism of the migration found among animals. We have also come to the logical conclusion that all animals, starting from a bacteria which is in prokaryote to a highly developed animal called mammal, are involved in the process called migration. The migration phenomenon is an inbuilt phenomenon and is an instinctive behavior found in the animals. Thank you very much.